my grandpa Becker, which was my mom's dad, he was in the cavalry, U.S. Cavalry, and he was in Arizona, and when they were fighting Pancho Villa, and he was in. I can remember seeing pictures of him with his Smokey the Bear hat. That's what the cavalry wore at them times.
Yeah.
And the wide pants and the great big long leather boots.
Wow.
And
I do remember
had
those
pictures of him on horseback, and he always whistled that. What was that song? That Mexican, yeah.
La Cucaracha?
Yeah.
The Cucaracha. He always, and that was a lot of times when he would be driving his car, he would be whistling La Cucaracha too when he was driving and sorting his mail.
Much older.
Right. And
Wow.
anyhow, he went into Mexico too and fought against Pancho Villa during that time. And that was in the early 1900s. I don't know exactly when.
Wow.
Another thing, after Grandpa Becker retired from the post office, he had what he calls a trot line. And at that time, he'd go around to all the different stores like A&P and Kroger's, and there was Piggly Wiggly and a lot of stores around there then. And he would get different things. And then Uncle Johnny had a farm out Caterpillar Trail. He had 40 acres out there. And he would go out and take all that food to the pigs.
Yeah.
And then another thing, on Sundays, he would bring us over cookies and donuts and things like that. A lot of my friends would come home after school to get the cookies. They'd come home and want to play, and then we'd have cookies, and they'd come and take some cookies out to them. And Grandpa Becker always did things like that for us.
That's nice.
Yeah, he knew all the bakeries in town, so he'd always stop at every Sunday morning. He brought us donuts.
Yeah. Yeah, Bismarck's full of real good jelly and all that. Boy, we look forward to that.
Right.
And I'll never forget one story. Uncle Johnny about died. Grandpa found this bakery, and they had a whole bunch of dough, and it was, for some reason, they had a bunch of extra dough. So Grandpa gets this whole truck full of this old dough, and he takes it out and feeds the pigs, and about 10 or 12 of Uncle Johnny's pigs died. They ate that raw dough, and then it got big inside of them. And killed them. And I can remember going out there, and they were pulling those dead hogs. These hogs are weighing, what, 200 and 300 pounds? Off with the tractor. Oh, it was Uncle Johnny. Talk about fit to be tied.
Wow.
Oh, man. I mean, the sows that had all these babies, and the mom died.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Grandpa Becker wasn't real high on Johnny's list at that time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And Uncle Johnny, I got to tell you this. I can remember being there. We would all be around the table. It would be just Uncle Johnny and my mom, Virginia. No, Aunt Garnet would be there too. And all the grandkids. And they would make a dozen eggs at a time. And they would start passing them around. And maybe Uncle Johnny would take 8 or 10 of the first 12 eggs and put them all on his plate, wouldn't he, Dan?
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. And everybody else would have to wait for the next batch. Instead of everybody getting one, but he was the oldest son. And that's just how it was. And you didn't question. Even I wasn't real bright, but I was about 8 years old. So I said, Mom, why can't I have one of them? Well, Uncle Johnny gets the first one. And that's just how it was around the Becker house.
Wow.
And how many kids did they have?
They had just the 2 boys, Mike and Donna. Oh, no, they had 4. 2 boys and 2 girls. Uncle Johnny, and then my mom, and then Aunt Garnet, and then Uncle Ed.
Right.
Uncle Ed was 14 years younger than Mom.
Mm-hmm. And he never had children.
No, he just had the one adopted son.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was married twice, but he didn't have any kids
Right.
at Jack.
Yeah. Yeah. And then your dad, Grandpa McMahon, he had a Friday night ritual all the time.
Yeah, he got drunk.
He got drunk on Friday night. He'd leave work at the turkey farm and make his way through
But
Barton
Mom
Hill.
always said the reason they'd be paying, and Uncle Ty would always have him come in. He'd have a couple drinks with Uncle Ty,
Yeah,
and if it wouldn't been for that, he might have driven straight home. But then he'd get started drinking, and then he just wouldn't stop. He'd go down to Red and Rosie's, and then nowhere.
He had a route.
The Duck Inn.
He had a route through Bartonville and then East Peoria taverns. He'd make his round, till he got home, which barely did sometimes. And he'd drive real slow when he got drunk.
Oh,
really?
Real slow.
Always a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he.
Every Friday night.
I can remember
Every
more one night. I'd
years,
want to go
years
out
and
and
years.
get him up, and Mom would say, "Just let him sleep in the car." Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, let him sleep there all night long.
Yeah.
Wow.
But things were different then.
Oh yeah, my dad did the same thing,
Yeah.
only maybe not once a week, maybe every 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
It was different.
Well, really, even more.
Oh yeah, a lot of people did a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
When we grew up too, also we had a cow and her name was Buttercup. We
Yeah.
had chickens.
Oh.
We had rabbits.
We had
They're
pigs.
We had pigs.
All there on Kerfoot.
Yeah, on Kerfoot Street.
I can remember.
We used to get in and have corn cob fights with pig.
Big dude.
They would have corn, feed them full corn, and then the pigs would eat the corn off it, and the corn cobs would be in there, and they'd be mixed with manure, and we'd have corn cob fights.
I remember one.
and
Throw them at each
and
other?
hit each other with them.
Nice.
I'll never forget that you knew Pitch Walker.
Pitch Walker.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one time I don't know who it was threw one, and Pitch stood up in a damn corn cob and the shit hit him right in the face, and Pitch said, "You didn't hit me!" It was all over his face. Remember
You
that?
missed me, right?
Yeah, you didn't get me.
And then they hit him again on the
You
shoulder.
still didn't get me.
Right.
It was cheap entertainment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can
I'd
never
say to
forget
see
this. Aunt Minnie and Aunt Leela, Aunt Mabel, or somebody was in town. I think she lived in Missouri or somewhere.
Right.
And 3 or 4 of Dad's sisters were there, and we had these pigs, and they were, for some reason, all the women were all dressed up. And for some reason, they wanted to go out and see who could call the pigs over. And I'd never heard this expression, but all of these women, and there was 3, I think, of them, would get out there and say "Suey, Suey," and they'd try. And I'd never heard that expression before in my life. And that's how they called the pigs. Yeah, they would try to call them pigs over. And Aunt Leila, I don't know who won it, but so one of them got the pigs to come over, and then they were the best, you know.
So what did they do with all the pigs? I mean, did they
We
actually
ate
sell
them.
them
We
to?
ate 'em.
Yeah.
We
or-
ate 'em.
Who did the butchering?
Grandpa,
Grandpa
he did
did.
it all.
Oh, really?
And they had a turkey farm.
Yeah.
He butchered turkeys his whole life.
Yeah, I can remember a neighbor had a cow too, a milk cow also, and that got hit by a car and broke its leg, and they didn't know what to do with it. So my dad hooked it up on the side of their, used a winch to hook it up on the side of their garage, and he slaughtered it right there, and they cut it up and they froze it. They had a freezer, so
Wow.
they let the cow die.
And when I was real little, remember Dad raised pigeons? He was going to make a fortune raising pigeons. Well, that didn't work out. Then he raised rabbits, and he was going to have a rabbitry and sell rabbits. Well, then my younger sister by then was maybe 1.5, 2 years old, and a rabbit. She was feeding a rabbit, and rabbit almost bit her finger off.
Right.
So
Oh,
she had to
wow.
get rid of the rabbits.
Just barely hanging on,
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's
had
a
to go
mean
down
rabbit.
to the local doctor, Doc Stiers, and he sewed her finger back on,
Right.
and she never looked like she had any damage to her hand after that. But it was her little finger.
Yeah.
Now it was just barely hanging on when she got
And rabbits are pretty tough.
right.
They said, "Oh, that genie
Well,
does
their
taste
teeth are
good."
real sharp.
It is funny how you think of these old things you hadn't thought about them for years.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the living room at night. And we didn't have that was before TV, and you had a radio. You know, we
Right.
listened to Inner Sanctum and
Yeah, that's
The Shadow,
the
Knows.
Shadow Knows, and
Yeah.
what was that theater? What
Yeah, what was that? And
the
Shoot, I just thought that up.
yeah, I almost did too. Man, we're getting old.
yeah.
I can remember we got a television when I was in the 8th grade. Man, that was big.
Yeah.
And did we get the inside bathroom before or after the TV?
Before I think
Before, I think so. Yeah.
we were uptown.
Yeah, we were big around East Peoria. By the time we got a black and white TV, everybody else was on color. But we got one, and we were
Right.
proud of it.
Right.
I can remember sitting there watching it. You know, when it would go off, you'd have the pattern come
Yeah.
on. I remember watching it. Even in the morning, we'd turn it on.
Just
The
to
button
watch
that
the
big on,
pattern,
yeah.
yeah.
Watch the pattern, man. We was excited.
Just to watch the test pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
This is my favorite part.
Yeah. Yeah, things are a little different now.
Yeah.
I look at Jacob, and he's got everything in the world, and
Yeah.
TVs and talking and.
I can remember
games.
when I got my first car, and gasoline would be 24 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
And I can remember several times getting it. They'd have a gas war, and I'd get it for 12 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
But I can remember one time I bought it for 9 cents a gallon. That's the cheapest I ever
Wow.
bought gas.
That's you tell people that and they can't believe it.
Right.
Did they have a speed limit?
No.
No.
No, it used to
when
be-
I was a kid, it said as
A
on it,
reasonable and what was it?
as
There was a-
weather and conditions permit.
That was the speed limit.
So
Whatever
that was
you,
speed limit,
your
right.
best judgment.
But the cars would only run probably 80 mile an hour then.
But that's still pretty fast.
Yeah.
Did you race them ever?
No, wow. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Let me think about it.
Oh, I used to run them as fast as they go.
As long as they lasted.
Right.
He tore a couple of
As
them.
long as the weather permitted.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, right. The good old days, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank
What
you
was
for sharing
that?
all
The
that
Phillips
stuff.
Theater?
Can't remember. I can't remember really. Don't think so.
No.
That was the name of it. I can't remember either. There were some others. So Grandma and Grandpa Becker always watched. Was it Molly and there was two names? Philip McGee and
Fibber
Molly.
McGee and Mom.
Fibber
McGee
McGee.
and Mom.
Oh, they had to watch. If you were over at their house and that was on, they had to listen to that. And I can remember to go over to Grandpa's one time because when they'd have a heavyweight fight on, and everybody go on, you'd be, right around the radio because they had a big fancy radio, like what would you call those? Console radio. And people would be all listening to the fight, and that was just really big time. Heavyweight fights was the main attraction.
Wow.
Yeah, things are a little different this day and age.
Red Skelton.
Oh yeah, and again, when we watched TV, Mom watched all those kind of shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loved anything with live entertainment.
Or movie star show,
Oh,
shows
anything
about
like
movie
that.
stars or old movies, and she
Yeah.
could tell you who the movie stars
Oh.
were. She was really paid attention to the Hollywood, movie stars and all that. She knew them all.
How about you ladies? Do you have any stories you want to share?
Well, I did. Was Josephine your aunt?
Yeah.
Okay, I did Josephine's hair for years. Didn't even know the relationship. Of course, I didn't know her.
Hey, let me tell you
She
what.
lived-
I bet I was 25 before I found Aunt Josephine was my aunt.
Oh.
See, Aunt my Grandma Becker had her before she was married to Grandpa, and she always just told me what was the story? She was a friend of the family. Mm-hmm. I think that's what they told us, and I think my Joan told me. I bet I was 25 years old before I found out she was actually my aunt.
Right.
Wow.
Supposedly, when she came over, she stayed at some farm or something, and the farmer's son raped her or something. Was that the story?
No, she was.
What was
Somebody
that?
She was a housekeeper in Chicago.
I don't
Grandma
remember.
Becker worked for someone, and they had males working, help around the house. I think he was a doctor, wasn't he? This person they worked for.
That's who she worked for, and he's the
Doctor
one who
is
raped
right.
her.
Was that who?
It was not the doctor. It was someone who worked for them.
I saw
also.
somebody work too.
And he raped her, and she kept Josephine for 2 years, and then she couldn't anymore, I guess. And so there was a family that the doctor's family knew that adopted Josephine and raised her. And then Grandpa Becker knew this whole story, and being a postman, he knew the family that she lived with. And at some point, he got her back, Josephine and your Grandma Becker, together after they were married.
I didn't realize all that.
That was the story that
Well, I'm
Joan
sure
told
I don't
us.
remember them all. That's good. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. But we'd go over and visit them once in a while. I can remember because I'd want to be home playing ball or something, and we'd go visit him, and I'd say, "Why are we visiting?" They called him Red. Remember, last name was Cross. They called him Red Cross. And
That's cool.
hers was Josephine, and they lived in somewhere in the north end of Peoria. And Mom would go down there, and she just talked to her like crazy. And I remember saying, "Mom, Jesus, you don't even know her. She's a friend of the family. Why do I have to be there?" And I didn't know later she was actually my aunt. They were real. The Beckers especially kept secrets, didn't they?
Yeah,
Man, they wouldn't tell
the
anybody.
Becker secret, right?
Yeah, I mean to tell you, they
I
didn't want
think
to tell.
your mom didn't find out about it until Bertha. Was it Bertha?
Yeah,
Johnny's
Bertha
sister
was. Yeah,
told her, and your mom didn't believe her.
Right.
She didn't believe her at all. And then later, after Johnny's wife, what was her name?
Aunt Doris.
Doris is the one that told her.
Yeah.
And she didn't believe her. So after Doris died, she really found out it was true, and she felt so bad that she didn't believe her.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Stories in the closet. Skeletons
Yeah.
in the closet.
And then Gracie did some flips.
That's right.
So did Hailey.
Come on, girls, tell us some of the secrets about Grandma and Grandpa.
I don't know.
They're the best.
They're
best-
perfect.
Everything you know is really good, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
How, Papa teaches you some new words, doesn't he? When he's driving.
Oh.
Yeah.
What kind of words?
Oh, well, they didn't even know that Jesus had a middle name.
Wait, does it?
Turns out it's Jesus H. Christ.
And what does the H stand for?
Hell.
I have no idea.
You know, our dad, whenever he would do anything, if anything didn't go perfect, when he start cussing, damn! I'll never forget one time. My mom was like me; I couldn't fix anything. And one time, my dad was out working on a lawnmower, and when my mom said, "Clifford, does it have any gas?" Man, did he ever get ticked! God damn it, Junior! You know I checked the gas. It isn't the gas.
And then it didn't have gas.
Oh, no, it had gas.
That was
Just
funny,
old,
though.
old mowers didn't run back in the day. You know, they're like cars. When I was a kid, they would have to get up sometimes in the winter. They'd get up a couple times at night to start the car, so it would start in the morning. Then when the time for them to go to work, they're so tired they couldn't hardly work good. You know, and they'd have flat tires at least once a week. I mean, things were so different when we were young.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, when you'd go visit somewhere, you'd put a blanket on the front of your car to keep the heat in.
Wow.
Because the radiator would be kind of open, so that
try to keep the heat in.
keep the heat in, so you could start it, so your battery would be up enough where you could start it.
And Dad had all the patch things from when a tire would get flat. He'd take the tire off himself and take the tube out and patch it, put it back up, and blow it up. You know, you're gonna hand pump.
Wow.
And that's how they did things. And it wasn't just Dad; it was everybody on the street.
did, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Does it almost feel like you're living in another world now?
Yeah,
I mean,
we are.
all the technology.
And
Definitely,
he
definitely.
built onto the house himself several times
Yeah.
with used wood.
From the machines on Uncle Ty's.
Yeah,
The
used
pinball
wood.
machines.
He built on
the
rooms
wood from
to
the
the
sides
house.
of the machine.
Because the house was real small
Yeah,
originally.
like I said, that whole back room where you're just sleeping down, that whole room, none of that was there. That was all just out in the backyard. There was a little bitty back porch, maybe this big, you know, just real little, and a real little big front porch.
And he built onto the home with.
Oh, and the
old
kitchen was
pinball
about, what do you
machines?
think? The kitchen was about a third that size that it is now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the garage, was it there originally?
No,
No,
that was
he
built in
built that.
71.
71.
Yeah, that was way after we
Oh,
all
wow.
left.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the reason I know that somewhere out there, Nick has his name. You know, Nick McMahon, 1971. Grandpa had him do that. He was
I
out
remember
there.
him building it after
Yeah.
we got married
Yeah.
in '68.
Yeah.
And Danny helped him build it.
Yeah.
That was probably all used wood too. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know.
No, that was low,
No.
new.
I
That
think
was
he
new
bought that
wood.
new.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but things were done different back in the day.
Yeah,
I'm
no
not
doubt.
kidding you.
And
That
Charlotte and Louie originally lived in that house. That's
They moved to
Grandpa-
California.
Grandpa's sister and her husband. Did they own it or just rent it?
No,
I don't remember.
They owned it. They bought it from them.
Okay.
You mean
I
the
can
house next
remember
door?
in the 8th,
The
7th, and
house
8th
that
grade.
your dad lives in.
Oh.
Grandpa's house was originally Aunt Charlotte's.
I see.
Yeah, I was.
Louis.
I was 2 years old when they moved in.
Okay.
And I can remember in school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I would take the payment down to there was a savings loan at the bottom of Springfield Hill where the bank is now. And Mom would give me $15 and she would just be worried sick till I got home to make sure I had the receipt and that I had paid that $15. That was their house payment for the month, $15 a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, Linda, did you grow up in the area where you are now?
I grew up on Springfield Road in East Peoria.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents moved there. Well, I was in second grade when they moved from Peoria. There on Springfield Road, and that's where I lived till I got married.
Wow.
And I lived on a little old garage. It was made into a house when I was first married for about a year and a half, and then moved to where I live now. So I haven't moved around that much.
And she lives right next to Aunt Joan. That's where
Yeah.
they lived right
Yeah.
next to my sister.
And you guys never came
I
across
never
each
met.
other that whole time or anything?
I didn't even remember him from high school.
Who would?
What
But he was a
it?
basketball
High
star,
school.
right?
Yeah, he was.
Well, I was
But
older
the
than
funny
him.
thing is, he had his locker right next door to my husband.
And Jim, one year, yeah.
Yeah,
In PE.
yeah,
I knew her husband, I didn't know her.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a nobody. in
That is
school,
right.
You know.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for sharing all this good stuff. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. And don't be singing any Neil
Thanksgiving.
Diamond tomorrow night. and the pie was still in there. And this is after many weeks. She said, Clifford, why didn't you eat your pie? He said, did I forget to throw that away? He says, I don't eat fruit pie. You've been throwing it away all the time. So she never gave him any in the future, obviously.
Well, do you have any distinct childhood memories you'd like to share?
Other than Danny getting me in trouble.
They used to sleep in the living room on the sofa sleeper, right?
Yeah, right. And open up into a
Yeah,
bed.
because
That was-
there's 4 kids. And
Yeah.
only
Yeah,
2 bedrooms.
they was happy when one of them
So-
would get married, like Joan was 8 years older when she got married. This got a little more room for the ones that left. But then Jeannie was born, she was 8 years younger. You know, so they didn't have that much extra time. And they really didn't have any money, did they?
No.
Our friends would work on a Saturday at Caterpillar and make more money than our dad made the whole week, working 6 days.
Wow. Doing what?
He worked for our uncle.
Okay.
But he at one time had a good job on the railroad, but he was switching or doing something, and he told Mom when he got home that he almost fell off and got a leg cut off when he was jumping back on the train, and Mom made him quit.
Oh, wow. That's
So-
understandable. Was Joan a happy child?
Oh, I thought she was, did you, Dan? Oh, she was very positive. I always thought like
She was the only kid for a long time in the family.
So many years.
Yeah.
But she was 8 years older than me.
Yeah.
She got, there was a story I never did understand, and maybe you heard it, but she got run over when she was little, and they're in the driveway and got a broken collarbone.
Right.
And I never know who did that, you
That was
know?
on one of
Minnie's
Minnie's-
husband.
Minnie's
wasn't it?
husbands.
Is that who did it?
or-
Maybe it was the first husband.
Yeah.
I never did know who did it.
Yeah.
And then that, remember the neighbor,
That wasn't the-
Jackie Hayback was her name?
Right.
And she threatened to throw Joan in the well.
Oh.
Oh, Mom and Dad really got ticked about
Oh, I
that,
bet.
you know? Yeah, there was some
What
good
did you know Joan?
They were neighbors.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
lived right next door to me.
Wow.
Yeah, and I always thought she looked like Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Pretty,
She was
Yeah.
beautiful.
She was
She
young.
really was.
Yeah.
beautiful woman.
And she had a great personality, really.
Yeah.
She was just
Totally.
really good to everybody, and she had a great personality.
What do you think changed in her?
Oh, I don't know. What do you think,
Changing
Dan?
what?
She had a hysterectomy, I think.
Yeah,
After
Mom,
she-
our mom had a hysterectomy, and I think Dad said it was 10 years, and she didn't leave the house. He had to go to the grocery store. And a doctor talked Joan into having a hysterectomy, and what, she was dead within a couple of years after that?
Well, maybe longer than that.
Maybe within 4 or 5 years, excuse me.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I missed part
She,
of it.
they
Joan?
never,
She had
bro.
hysterectomy.
About what
She
age?
never was right. It's through their
She-
body chemistry off, Mom and Joan both.
It was only about a year and a half after she had the surgery.
That's what I
And
thought.
she stayed at your mom's from the time she got home from the hospital till she had to go back in the hospital or she died.
Right.
And she just, I think she had in her head that that was going to change her. And when the hormone changed, all that combined, she just couldn't deal with it.
I remember talking.
About how old was she when she passed?
How old was she?
Let me think. I would say she probably, when Lisa was a baby, I would say she died in 83, so she would have been
She was born in 35,
32.
32.
Yeah. So she'd have been like, what, 56 or something, wasn't that
I was
old?
gonna say 54,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
thought
not there.
50s, yeah.
But it was, I'll tell you, I was talking to Dad one time. Jim would drop her off at this time at the house, and he would work, and then we'd pick her up. And green beans were in. And Dad said, he was telling me this over the phone, she would get one green bean out, cut the green bean, get the little, like, bean out of it. She would cut that in half, and then she would eat half of it and tell Dad she was just too full. Now, I mean, he wasn't making this up. I mean, this
She
is.
probably lost 50 pounds
She was. He said that, you know, she was just down skin and
after
bone.
that surgery.
Wow.
She was going
She's
into
never
deep
right,
depression.
ever.
Yeah.
Deep depression, and then Jim put her back in the hospital, and that's where she died.
In the hospital?
In the hospital.
In St.
She-
Francis.
She hung herself.
Oh, see, I'd always heard it mixed up that it was in her house, but that
Oh, no, it was in the
okay.
hospital. He had a lawsuit against us, and they had to pay something.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
lost because they were supposed to be watching her. She went, if I heard, she went and got a belt or something.
No,
purse.
she-
A purse.
Diaper bag.
No, it's a diaper bag.
Diaper bag or something like that.
Janet, she begged
Wow, that's-
Janet to bring her a diaper bag to put stuff in, and, you know,
Yeah.
convinced her she was just gonna put clothes in it and stuff, you know, so Janet did. And, she use that one or so.
And they found her in the closet, didn't they?
But before,
Yeah, it was a
she had
closet.
put her makeup on and fixed her hair and was just beautiful, I guess,
No wonder that.
before she did it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so sad.
It is.
Yeah. And then came David. He was so wonderful. And then he grew up and he wanted to sing Neil Diamond songs, and I was so sad.
Only Elvis, right?
He should.